and unacceptable to talk about what is happening in Libya. The Libyan ambassador was summoned earlier to the UK Foreign Office to essentially get a dressing down from diplomatic staff there. They condemned the use of lethal force against protesters in very strong terms to the Libyan ambassador earlier. And the British government said that it wants numerous things from Libya. It wants an end to violence. It wants an investigation into the killings that have happened there so far. It wants political and economic reform from Libya. And it wants human rights monitors to be let into the country. It also wants...
Rory, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Catherine Ashton, the EU Foreign Minister, is speaking in Brussels on this subject. Let's listen in.
On the Egyptian visit, actually we're still finalising, as you can imagine, parts of that. We'll be seeing the government, a range of different political parties, and importantly for me, civil society, and I'm also trying to make contact with some women's groups. I'll be meeting some of the young people who were in the square and trying to do a number of things. First of all, to get a real sense of ways in which we can offer support. But this is for Egypt to determine, by the way, not for us. And having the opportunity to talk about the future and to get a sense of, as I did in Tunisia, where people want to go. And for civil society particularly, the things that are particularly important to them, the stability they want to see, the process of going forward. Transparency is a big issue, I think, for many of the groups who've already been talking in the media and beginning to talk to others as well.
I'm sorry, but we have to wrap up because High Representative has a plane to catch.
All right, just to break in there, that's the Foreign Affairs Council, the EU's Foreign Affairs Council speaking in Brussels. Now, Catherine Ashton, the Foreign Affairs Chief, was actually talking about Egypt there. Obviously, Libya was a subject they were talking about earlier. Let's go back to Rory Challens, who's in London. Rory, there was a strong statement that came from the EU condemning the violence in Libya. Are they all taking a united position on this?
Yes, they are at the moment. I mean, there has been, well, at least from William Hague, an indication that unless the reforms that he has called for happen, then the international community as a whole will be holding Libya to account for its actions. So there does seem to be a sort of unified position from most countries, at least, on what is going on in Libya at the moment. Now, there have been, in the past few years, different approaches to Libya from different countries, and the UK, as a particular example, has been criticised for being too cosy with Libya and treating Muammar Gaddafi too well, considering some of the things that he is alleged to have done for his country in the past. The United States has been particularly critical of the UK's relationship with Libya. Just over the last 24 hours or so, the US ambassador to the UK, Lewis Sisman, said that dealing with Gaddafi was a mistake. But there doesn't seem to be anyone who's willing to deal with Gaddafi at the moment.
Just while you've been speaking, Rory, we've got news coming in saying that a senior source in President Hugo Chavez's government denies that Gaddafi has come to Venezuela. And in fact, Catherine Ashton also said she didn't know anything about Gaddafi going to Venezuela. So it's still up in the air about where exactly Gaddafi is. If he was going to Venezuela, why Venezuela? Do we know?
Well, basically, because it seems like that if there are countries who would be willing to accept him, places in South America like Venezuela have been countries that have been willing to accept unsavoury characters in the past. Countries where there have been less of a strict stance or a discerning idea about who they like and who they don't. And Venezuela and other South American countries have shown that in the past they're willing to do that. If Venezuela is saying that there is no sign that Gaddafi is heading there, then it seems like maybe that's a stance that they're changed.
Yeah, it's obvious that there's a lot of confusion about Gaddafi's whereabouts. I mean, certainly William Hague has suggested that he is going to Venezuela. Just talking about, relationship between the EU and Libya. There is a lot at stake for Europe in that region, isn't there? Because Europe has a lot of business interests, oil interests. There's a great big border there as well. Europe has to step quite carefully, doesn't it?
Yes, well, one of the reasons why the UK particularly decided that it was going to open up its diplomatic relationship with Libya was that Libya has a huge amount of oil, and that the deal in the desert that was done between Tony Blair and Gaddafi in 2007, many people were criticising that.
OK, Rory, thanks very much indeed for that. Rory Challen's speaking to us from outside the Foreign Office in London. So let's just take you through the developments. I mean, quite a lot happening in Tripoli. Hard to get confirmation of everything because lines of communication have been cut. But we know that a march was planned through Tripoli. They're calling it a million-man march. And state television there is reporting that security forces have launched a crackdown on these groups of protesters, and witnesses are telling AlJazeera that this is a crackdown using live ammunition and a fighter aircraft, which is apparently firing on protesters who are said to be unarmed. We've also had, again, difficult to get to the bottom of this, a report from Reuters saying that Libya's Gaddafi was coming to Venezuela. That has been categorically denied by a senior source in Hugo Chavez's government. We're also hearing that all landlines and communications in and out of Libya, all of Libya, is that what I'm being told? I see. I apologise for the pause there. I'm just getting information from producers who are saying that all landlines and communications have been cut into and out of Libya. So clearly things developing there. I can also tell you that several more senior diplomats have resigned. We had a statement from Libyan diplomats in Sweden, Sayed Jalabi, Hamid Kassem and Abdullahi Mafouf, who are saying that they condemn the genocide, they call it the genocide of civilians taking place in Libya following their legitimate demands of life in dignity and without the despot Gaddafi. So pointing to a rift at top levels between the regime and senior diplomats. Now, we will, of course, keep you up to date with all the developments coming out of Libya. A lot of fast-moving events happening there, and we will be across them as we go. Let's get just a little bit of other news now. Tunisia is formally requesting the extradition of ex-President Zine Al Abidine Ben Ali from Saudi Arabia. The former leader who ruled Tunisia for 23 years flew to the Gulf state after being ousted from power. Meanwhile, we're getting reports that Tunisia has appointed a new foreign minister, Ahmed Hounais, who resigned last week. He's been replaced by Mouldi Kaisi, according to a government source. Now, the British Prime Minister has arrived in Egypt